All right, welcome to another episode of Chronicles of a Modern Day Samurai. I am your host, Zeus Kang, and welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about a very, very important issue, or not issue, a topic that I find myself explaining quite a bit. So, for redundancy purposes, this may be a good video for me to refer people to if they do ask me, but it is on how to retire. Now, I'm now 38 going on 39. I can't believe I'm saying that. 40 is a new 20. Come on, guys. We all know that. But no, I feel greater than ever. I feel like I'm in a very good mental headspace compared to previous times. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life physically. So all is good. 38. If you guys are in your 40s or nearing your mid 30s, it doesn't have to be a terrible, terrible thing. I'm the type of person that really embraces or tries to embrace the age that I'm at. I know you probably hear from your parents or your friends, oh my God, the things I would give to be 20 again, to be 18 again. I wouldn't give shit to be 18 again. I was 18 at one point. I did what I needed to do, and I was a proper 18-year-old at one point. But no, that was then. I'm so happy with where I'm at. That may change. I may be in my 70s and think, man, it would be nice to go back to when I was in my 30s. But right now, I have absolutely no desire to go back to my 20s or my teens. I feel great. So I'm happy with where I'm at. And I'm hope that you do too. Leave a comment down below. How old are you? And are you happy with where you're at? Do you wish that you were 5, 10, 15 years younger? Are you probably those things are attributed to how you feel physically. It's so important to take care of yourself. I mean, we get one of these. We don't get to go to the store and get another body if we don't feel right. We get one, so treat yourselves right. If you're not eating right and you're feeding yourself and you're just consuming just garbage, you're going to reflect that. You're going to feel that way. You're going to feel like what you eat. They say, you are what you eat. So if you eat like shit, you probably feel like shit and you probably look like shit. But that can change, fortunately. There's a lot of studies out there where changing your consumption habits, your diet, can make a tremendous difference in the way you feel and the way you look and on just overall well-being and longevity. I remember, it must have been like 10 years now. 10 plus years ago, my father had damn near stage 4 cancer, gastric and esophageal cancer. I remember the oncologist saying, hey, listen, if these surgeries don't work, I'm going to refer you to a dietitian, and we're going to try to take a dietary route to resolving your dad's cancer. And I just like, food? You're going to fix cancer through food? Didn't make sense to me. So I was like, all right, doc, hope the chemotherapy and the surgery works. It did, fortunately, but I just remember that very vividly. I was probably in my mid-20s, and for a doctor at Johns Hopkins University, which is or hospital, which is one of the most renowned oncologist departments in the U.S., for a doctor of that caliber to suggest a dietary solution to cancer really left a mark on me. And so, as I get older, I'm a little bit more conscious and aware of what I eat, as you should be as well. And it just, I've always eaten healthy. Of course, do I like my junk food every now and then? Of course I do. I love junk food. I love fast food. It kind of helps for the fact that I'm not in the U.S. I realize now that I'm living in Europe how convenient fast food is. I mean, you're driving from one appointment to another. You're hungry. For one, there's just a real limited amount of healthy food. And then on the same note, the availability of fast food. My goodness. I mean, fast food with drive-through. I mean, it's tough. And I understand. And it's an industry that has been designed that way. But you don't have to. You don't have to. As long as you are aware and you make a conscious decision to eat healthy, I think you can. The easier, path of least resistance is the non-healthy way. And I think it's okay to do that every now and then. However, for that to be your lifestyle, to consume fast food 3, 4, 5 times a week, I just don't think it's worth it. So again, we get one body, treat it well, treat it like your temple, and you don't have to live a long life. I don't have any intentions or desires to live to 100. But if I live to 70, 75, 80, and it's a healthy 75, I'm happy with that. So I think, again, I don't know if you agree with me or not. For me, it's not really the longevity. I don't really care to be on the earth for as long as I can, just dwindling away and, being unhappy. But I want to live the life that I do have, or the years that I do have left, healthy and well and mentally there, so that I could contribute and experience life until I am no longer here. So I hope you guys agree with me in that. And the reason I bring that up is because if you have wealth and you have money and you have people around you, but you don't have your personal health, it means absolutely nothing. You think about some of the most richest people in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. These people have more money than we could even fathom, right? But imagine if they got sick. It's useless. They say, I think it was from a country song, you don't really see a lot of trailer hitches on a hearse. So you can't take this stuff with you. So treat your body well, accumulate wealth quickly, and so that you can enjoy the time you have on earth with the people that you love, so you don't have to do the things you don't want to. And I think that's really the objective of financial freedom. And I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but in today's episode, I'm going to share with you, again, there are a lot of different ways to retire early and to have financial freedom. You might be into crypto. You might have a successful business. You might have inherited the money. I don't care. It doesn't, I'm not here to judge. But if you want to, my story is just one story. And if it resonates with you and you can grab something from it, or you decide to follow the plan and do something similar, then good for you. And that's kind of my hopes for this podcast. Okay. So my story, where does this all begin? I was born in South Korea, in Seoul. I know Korea's been popping up on the map with movies nowadays and K-pop but before, back in the 80s, it really wasn't on the map so much. So I'm from South Korea. I was born there. Two loving parents, mother and father. I have a younger sister who's about a year and a half younger than I. We immigrated to the U.S. back in 1989. I was about 5. I think my sister was 4, give or take. And it was rough. We ended up moving into my uncle's basement. They had a fallout, so we ended up moving out, getting our own place. But that's where I spent most of my life. We lived in a Northern Virginia neighborhood called Annandale, Fairfax County. If you guys are from that area, shout out to all my Nova folks. But they call that area the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And so that's where I grew up. Great area. If you think about America, it's the middle class kind of upbringing. And we didn't start off with much, but my dad obviously, worked very hard to get us out. And we ended up buying a house in Burke, Virginia, and ended up going to school nearby at Lake Braddock. And then I left for a couple of years, came back and finished my undergraduate education at James Madison University, JMU. And then I took off. I traveled a bunch, I think, in between jobs. And then back in 2010-ish, I got a job in DC at the FBI headquarters. And it took about 2.5 years to get all my clearances. As you know, you don't just start work with the FBI the next day. They did a very thorough background investigation. I ended up getting my secret, top secret, and SCI clearance. Now, SCI means sensitive compartmentalized clearance, I think it was, information. And this is the clearance that even the president needs. These are kind of as needed or need to know clearances. So if you want to work on certain cases, you need a very, very high level of clearance. And so it took that time because I did have family in Korea. I did have, connections to foreign nationals. And so it took a while. And I did have a lot of travel. So 2.5 years passes by. I ended up getting the job. I go through to the academy. I get they gave me a badge. I got sworn in. And then during the training, they asked everyone and said, where do you want to go? Now, you can't pick where you want to go. How the FBI works is, and most government agencies, is based on the needs of the bureau, and that's kind of what you sign up for. So, however, you can put region. I think they had like a northeast and a southwest region, and you can pick your region. So you kind of end up close to where you want to be. I wanted to go to the West Coast. I wanted to end up in California, so I put the West Coast. Now, Hawaii was included in the West Coast. I didn't know. I've never been to Hawaii before. Before that, we didn't even go to vacation to Hawaii. My family just didn't have the financial resources to go on a vacation to Hawaii, so I've never been there. I pulled out this envelope, and out comes my field office, my first field office, and it says Honolulu, Hawaii. And I think that's kind of cool. Kind of overshot what I wanted in California, but no, I was stoked. I think I was 24 or 25 at the time, and it just seemed like a dream. I mean, it was my first real kind of official job, and so fast forward. I go to Hawaii. I'm there for about 6 years with the FBI. I specialized in counterintelligence and counterterrorism. So that's what I did. I investigated. I did some criminal, some domestic terrorism stuff, some white collar crime, some public corruption, but mostly what I did was counter intel and counterterrorism. That was kind of my specialty. Now, why did I quit? I resigned after 6 years of being with the FBI. Now, someone would say, well, why would you do that? I mean, it took me 2.5 years to get the job. It's like a dream job for most people. And it is. It was a great organization. I met some very talented, fantastic people while I was working there. But it really just came down to my personal choice. I mean, it's kind of like the military. You serve your country and you're a public servant, and that comes first. And, I wanted to give back because, when I was in high school, 9/11 was happening, and I wanted to go to the military, and my mom begged me, say, hey, listen, do whatever you want, but just don't join because you will go to war, and she just didn't want to lose a son. I honored that. I didn't end up going to military, but I held, I felt the sense of like, not shame, but, I came to this new country, it provided all this opportunity, and I didn't get a chance to give back, and I felt kind of, selfish. So that was a part of the reason why I was so enthusiastic about joining the FBI, because I know we're not, fighting wars on foreign territory, but, we are protecting, our home here in the U.S. So, but why did I quit? 6 years goes by, and I'm faced with the decision of advancing my career within the FBI or deciding to do something else. Now, at that time, I had a completely different philosophy. I was in my 30s. I wanted to start a family eventually. And, I would view some of my colleagues who have been in for a long time, and they really, and shout outs and kudos and all the credits to the great men and women of the FBI, they had dedicated their lives to their profession. And, with that comes certain sacrifices, some family issues and stuff like that. Substance abuse, which I saw quite often. And I just didn't think, I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to be there for my family and to be a great father. And not to say that you can't, but it becomes very challenging because you do have those, very demanding jobs. I would have, because my job was in counterintelligence, 99.5% of my work was undercover. And I remember having multiple passports, and it was very confusing. I mean, it was a very challenging lifestyle. And I'm sure a lot of people have gotten used to that lifestyle of kind of living a double or a triple life. But I don't know. For me, it really wasn't the path that I wanted to go. So I ended up quitting, and I say to everyone in explaining this, it was easily the most difficult but best decision I ever made. Now, if you thought, man, leaving the FBI, what a dumb thing to do, I get it. I mean, most people would dream of a job in working for the FBI. I think, social media and the entertainment industry has kind of exacerbated that. And again, I'm not downplaying my experience in the FBI at all. It was a great organization. I learned so much, and I would never take it back. But I just decided, okay, like I want to start a new chapter. So I took off, I quit, I sold my car, and I ended up traveling for about 11 and a half months. I was 30 at that time. I did not want to be, that creepy guy at the hostel. We all know who that guy is, that creepy old guy at the hostel. I was right on the threshold, so I wasn't quite creepy, and I did stay at a lot of hostels, which, financially made the most sense. And so, no, I took off. I remember before writing, or before actually printing my resignation letter, I had on my computer screen, I literally had my resignation letter on the left, which was like in a Word document. And then on the right, I had, I think, Expedia or some travel website with a one-way ticket to Iceland. I've never been to Iceland, and I thought, man, that would be a great place to start my adventure, my one-year adventure. So my mouse was hovering over the book button, and I was like, man, if I book this, it's non-refundable, so I'm gonna have to do it. So I closed my eyes and I clicked in and I confirmed the booking. So at that point, I had a one-way flight from Hawaii to Iceland, and then I ended up printing my resignation letter, submitting it that week, and within 4 to 6 weeks from that point, I was gone. I was out of Hawaii. I tied up all the loose ends I needed to in Hawaii. So, and that's how the 11 and a half months started. So I backpacked Europe. It was kind of a running joke. I didn't want to come back to the US and people say, oh, where did you go in Europe? I wanted to say every country in Europe. I literally went to every country in Europe. So I didn't have to go down the list of where I went. I fell short of that, obviously, but I did end up going to like 15, 16 countries in Europe. 35 plus cities, and it was the time of my life. I mean, I wouldn't take it back for anything. And for you, those of you guys that travel, you know what I mean. I mean, the things that really stay with you, the things that really made my life enjoyable was reflecting back on my travel experiences, the things I did, the amazing people that I met. Oh my God, I met so many amazing people in Europe. And if you hosted me in Europe and you welcomed me into your home and invited me out to dinner with your family and friends, and you show me the city, you know who you are. So my deep gratitude and sincere thank you to you guys for making my trip so amazing. And I was in Europe, and it was actually during the winter. I was in Bratislava, out of all places, and it was like minus 16 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit right now, but it was fucking cold. And I decided, and that was only 6 months in, I was like, man, do I go home? Like, I'm supposed to be away for a year, but I'm only halfway there. Do I go home? Like, this is miserable. I'm cold. Like, I couldn't even leave my hostel because it was so cold. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, why don't you go somewhere warm? It didn't even cross my mind. So I was like, shit, Bali sounds nice. Everyone's going to Bali. So I ended up booking a ticket to Bali, and then everything was fine. I ended up spending another about 4 months in Southeast Asia, going to the Philippines, Malaysia, Burma, Singapore, Philippines. And then after that, I ended up making my way to Australia and then finishing the trip in New Zealand, which was amazing. So, man, I think, I don't know how many, I would say 40 plus countries I went to. Man, it was the greatest 11 and a half months of my life. And so, but towards the end, I wasn't really getting that excitement anymore for traveling and seeing another city. I was getting more of an excitement towards starting something. And I've always wanted to get into real estate. And I'll kind of back up there for a little bit. I remember, and you asked the question, well, why did I choose real estate? I could have done anything. I could have moved to New York and started a cupcake store. I could have moved back to Virginia and got another government job. I could have moved to California or moved to Australia and done whatever. I mean, become a carpenter. I don't know. So why did I want to choose real estate? I remember this one moment specifically. My parents were renting a house in Springfield, Virginia. And, this was a couple years after they had lost their home in the big housing crisis of 2008. And so they ended up renting. And our landlord was an attorney who came by physically to collect check at the first of every month. And I remember this guy, he was a pretty tall Caucasian male, probably in his 70s, I would say. Very nice guy. He would knock on the door and my mom would have a check ready for the rent. And I remember one thing, I was like basically like hiding, behind my mom. And he said, hey, little fella, or not little, he said, hey, fella, how are you doing? I said, hey, I'm good. And I remember, I don't know how the conversation came up, but I remember him saying, I don't remember anything else about the conversation or interaction, but I remember him saying that he owned 7 homes in that neighborhood. And I thought, my goodness, I was probably 15, 16 at the time. And I remember thinking oh my God, this is the richest guy that I've ever met. you know. At that time, the median home price in that neighborhood was probably around 350,000, maybe 400,000. So I did some quick math and I go, wow, this guy is a multimillionaire and he's literally going around collecting rent. And I said, that takes no effort at all. Now, I'm not sure how much the rent was, probably 1,700, 1,800 bucks maybe. So it's not earth moving, but then you multiply that by 7. And I mean, again, I couldn't even fathom having that type of money and the way that he did it. I mean, it was effortless. He just literally drove by and collected money. And people were willing. I mean, they need a roof over their head. So that was a kind of a turning point in my life. I don't know that landlord would ever reflect back on our interaction, but it's funny the things that you remember when you're younger. And that moment, that interaction with that landlord standing behind my mom really stood out to me. And it really created what I would call the starting off point, the beginning of the trajectory towards real estate, whether I knew it or not. So why real estate? Now, I had just mentioned that, my conversation and interaction with the landlord was kind of what springboarded it. It was many, 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 many years before I actually did something about it. But again, that put a little seed in my head that I wanted to get into real estate because I thought, wow, like I want that lifestyle as well. I wanted to own 7 homes and be driving around on the first of every month collecting rent. So why, there's a lot of investment strategies out there. And I'll kind of go over a couple of the more popular ones. There's, of course, the flipping business. Now, when you say flip, I'm not talking flipping a pancake. But the analogy might be accurate. You're done with one side of the pancake, you flip it over, you cook the other side before you eat it. Flipping homes, I'm sure you guys know by now, but if you don't, means that you buy a home that needs renovation, that needs some work done. You buy it at a good price, you fix it, and then you sell it for a lot more. So you're basically like wholesaling in a way, and then you fix it and then you sell it retail. And then you collect the profit and then pay whatever taxes you need to and then pay for materials and labor. The other strategy that I decided to go with, now you could do that, and there are a lot of people making great money flipping homes. The reason that I didn't do that is because I love, based on my research, and I wanted to do more of a long-term win strategy. Warren Buffett is probably the best example of this. There's a lot of books out there that he's written called, I think one's called The Snowball Effect. There's another one called, not by him, but Compounding Interest or Compounding Effect. But I really wanted to create long-term wealth. I wasn't really too keen on the idea of getting rich quick. I knew that had its inherent risks. I wanted to get rich over time. And with that comes, reduced risk. And that was like, okay, that's my strategy. And so some of you guys may have heard of this strategy. It's called the BRRRR. So the BRRR method. And the acronym for BRRRR stands for buy, rehab or renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat. So I thought, okay, after doing a lot of research, I thought that's the strategy that I want to use. That's the strategy that I want for my real estate investment strategy. Now, there's a lot of investment strategies out there. Now, you could be into stocks and bonds and you name it, cryptocurrency. There's a lot of investment strategies out there. Starting a business is really an investment strategy, right? I mean, you're investing into your business to make a return. Now, why did I choose real estate comparative to the other investment strategies? I mean, I do invest in stocks. I mostly do stock indexes because of, again, I'm more of a long-term investment strategist. But why real estate specifically compared to stocks and other investment strategies? Well, let me explain. There are more than a couple actually, unique benefits to investment strategies that makes it, for me, a lot more favorable to other investment strategies. And I'll go over here one by one. The first one is tax deferment. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but when you pay taxes, when you pay interest on the mortgage, so 99% of people or 95% of people end up getting a mortgage. You're paying your bank back, a little bit of interest and a little bit of principal. Now, in the beginning, if you have a 30-year amortized mortgage, in the beginning, most of your payments are going to be interest comparative to your principal. So in the beginning, this becomes really important because you're paying thousands of dollars a year on interest payments. Now, when you do your taxes, you can actually write those off. There are a couple other things, including property taxes and depreciation, that you can write off on your taxes, which is great. because the government says, well, you're paying this, or you can actually reduce your taxes by that amount, which is fantastic. The other thing is continuous cash flow. Now, I call this mailbox money. Just like the landlord did, and when he drove around on the first every month collecting checks from his tenants, this is rent money that comes in regularly on every month. Okay, but now provided you have good tenants that are paying on time, this is literally money that comes into my account through direct deposits or Venmo, and that's consistent every single month. The other reason is that you can force equity into your property through renovations. Because it is a physical asset, because it is an asset that you can actually go up to and touch and do whatever, you can actually appreciate it by renovating. For example, if your house that you bought has an outdated kitchen, you can go to Home Depot, buy cabinets and sinks and appliances, and spend a couple $1,000s to fix it. Now you may have just appreciated the value of your property, tens of thousands of dollars. So another great benefit is forced equity by being able to renovate or improve the home that you have. The other thing is, again, we're talking more in terms of long-term appreciation. The longer you hold your property over time, again, we're talking 10, 15, 20, 25 plus years. Historically speaking, again, there's no guaranteed in investing, but it's nearly guaranteed just by looking at the statistics over the home prices, the median home price over the last 50, 60 years. Your home will increase in value, again, in the long term. What it will do in the next year or two, no one knows, especially with the volatility we're seeing now with interest rates. We don't know what the market's going to do. However, if you plan for a long-term strategy over time, your home will appreciate in value, which means that by doing nothing more than just owning it, it'll be worth more over time. Leverage. There's not a lot of other investment strategies out there where you can actually leverage the asset that you have, the investment that you have, which again is real estate, your properties, to get more money. You can't go to your stock. If you buy Apple stocks, for example, you can't go to Apple and say, hey, I have 1,000 shares of Apple stocks. Could I borrow back 500 of it? I mean, there are some pretty creative options now, but my guess is that you couldn't go to Apple and do that. With real estate, if you have equity built into your home, you can actually go to your bank or any other bank for that example. They will reappraise the value of the home and say, okay, you do in fact have $300,000 in equity, and they will actually loan you that money. This is called a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. This is money that you can then use to buy another property and repeat the process. And so this type of investment strategy allows you not only to get in, but also to scale. And that is immense. That is profound. That is a unique feature about real estate investing that you would probably have a very difficult time finding in other investment strategies. I mentioned before, but real estate is a tangible asset. For me, I like to be able to go to it and touch it. So it's tangible. And unlike cryptocurrency and digital currency and stuff like that, most everything now is digital, whereas real estate is a tangible asset. Last but not least, within real estate investing, you can also diversify. You guys always hear diversify your portfolio. Have a little bit of this, have a little bit of that. Basically, it means in a nutshell, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if that basket were to be destroyed, you lose everything, right? So you want to diversify your portfolio. Within real estate, you can diversify your real estate portfolio as well. You could have single family homes, you can have apartment complexes, you can have single condo units, you can even have commercial property or land. So even within the confines of real estate investing, you can diversify, which means that you're hedging your risk a little bit better, because if the residential real estate market crashes, you may still have a couple of the real estate or land properties that might mitigate some of the risk. All right, so let me talk to you about my personal investment journey. Now, it all started, I didn't have a dime to my name really until very kind of later in life. Now, when I moved to Hawaii a couple years in, as soon as I got there, I really was kind of looking, hey, could I buy a house? I ended up going to a loan officer and a realtor who said, no, you don't qualify. And with my inexperience, I took that answer and I kept it, and I had my tail between my legs for 4.5 to 5 years. Now, what that property would have done as far as appreciation in 5 years, no one would know. But because I took no for an answer, I ended up not buying anything and holding out for another 5 years until I asked someone else. My advice to you is do not take no for an answer. If you feel like you can't now, ask enough people to where you get a yes. There are creative ways to do things, anything in most situations. So had I gone to another loan officer or another realtor and looked further into it, I probably could have qualified for something. I lost out on 5 years of appreciation because I took no for an answer and because I didn't ask more than one person. That was a huge mistake. So if you're watching this and you want to get into real estate investing, ask many different people. Ask for different opinions, ask for different services and products. Ask until you get someone who says, hold on, I may have something for you. And that is a pro tip that if I can go back in time and change, that I would change. So let's fast forward. I ended up buying, right before I quit the FBI, I ended up buying a small condo in Waikiki. Now, this was a 325 square foot condo, and I think I paid a little over $200,000 for it. That was all that I could afford. I ended up using, because again, I didn't have a lot of cash, a 5% down loan. Now, a 5% down loan on a $200,000 home is roughly about $10,000. I found out that I needed $10,000, so I ended up saving. It probably took me a better part of 6 months to 7 months, but I scrounged up $10,000. I was able to qualify, and I ended up buying it. Now, remember I told you that I quit? Now I go, oh my God, how do I quit my job and travel when I have a mortgage? Now, most of you think like, okay, you're tied down to a mortgage. Your life is over, right? So I was really, really stressed out because I knew I wanted to quit and travel, but I had this mortgage. So I thought, okay, simple, I'll just sell it. It would have been a terrible decision for me to sell it. So I ended up holding on to it. And what I ended up doing was I ended up putting it on Airbnb. Now, this is the heart of Waikiki. I'm talking like a stone's throw away from Waikiki Beach. It had a fantastic location. It had a full kitchen. It was a starter apartment, but most people who vacation really aren't looking for, a Ritz-Carlton kind of experience because their budget doesn't allow. So I made a budget for, I think it was like $120 a night. Great location, full kitchen. And so I put on Airbnb and lo and behold, I started getting bookings. And so I ended up blocking out when I knew I was going to be in Hawaii and then made it available for when I knew I was going to end up leaving the island. Now you ask yourself, well, how did you manage an Airbnb traveling the world? I was really lucky and I found a couple who was cleaning, and they were my cleaner / property manager. Now, luckily for me, nothing major happened in the 11 months that I was away. A few things did happen. I mean, some minor things. There was a blockage in the tub, and I think there was a leak in the bathroom. But those are things that I got resolved just by calling and having someone come. So, and it provided me enough income for me to travel for 11 and a half months. Now, keep in mind, I didn't have that much money saved up in terms of my savings to spend 11 months on the road. Now, I didn't go balls out when I was traveling. I wasn't staying in hotels or anything. So I traveled very cheap. I stayed in hostels. I used couch surfing. If you guys have heard of couch surfing, it's basically like Facebook for crashing on someone's couch for free. So I met a lot of people that way, and I saved a lot of money. I ended up staying with a lot of friends, which helped. So I traveled very cheap, but I was also getting income from my rental property, which is great. It wasn't a lot of money. I think I was cash flowing about maybe $1,000 a month. But when you're traveling cheap, $1,000 a month cash flow without having, to pay for additional things is quite a bit. And I remember one month, I think I was in Sweden, and I was staying with a friend of mine for probably about 3 weeks. So I didn't have much expenses. We ended up cooking at home, and my bank account actually went up that month because I didn't really spend any money. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I was on to something. And then I ended up eventually sharing how I ended up traveling through real estate and how real estate made it possible with a lot of different people. And I think some of which actually did the same thing. So that's how I ended up getting into real estate. As opposed to selling my property when I traveled, I ended up keeping it Airbnb and using the cash flow to actually finance my travel. I came back eventually back to Hawaii. I did end up selling that unit because I wanted to buy another unit, which was a lot better building. And I thought the building was having some maintenance issues, so I didn't want to get hit with a huge assessment. So that was a part of the reason why I decided to sell. I used the profits from that sale to buy another condo in Waikiki. That was in an equally great location, a much nicer building. And I think I bought that for $320,000 or $25,000. And I also did Airbnb in that. I actually ended up renting the place that I lived on my own. So I rented out my condo, which was cash flowing about. I was grossing about $4,000 to $5,000 a month at that time through Airbnb, and then my rent was only like $1,500. So I was making a lot of cash flow through my Airbnb. I was just getting started into real estate sales as a realtor, and so I ended up saving up money to buy another unit in the same building. So I think that was pretty equal in price. I paid roughly about $325,000 for it. So now I had two units in the same building, again, just a stone's throw away from Waikiki Beach, that I was Airbnb-ing full time. And between the two, I was grossing about $10,000. Of course, I have to pay my cleaners, I have to pay my HOA, I have to pay my mortgage, I have to pay my property taxes, any maintenance. So I would say I was cash flowing about, I don't know, maybe $2,500 to $3,000 a month. I was cash flowing, which was great because if you add that up, $3,000 a month in a year is about $36,000. It's a low paying job that I basically have invested in, right? Which is fantastic. I ended up doing really well in real estate sales. I ended up selling I think 21 homes in my first year. I made more money in real estate sales that I did probably in 3 months that I did probably in like 2 years I did as an FBI employee. And it was more money than I had ever seen. As opposed to blowing it, I saved up enough money to end up buying a house. I actually bought a house in Kaneohe, and I'll kind of go over a little bit later, and this will get really in-depth, so I'll keep it really kind of in general for this episode. But I bought a house that was a single-family home. On record, it was 1,300 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I mean, a pretty simple, basic home. But the ground floor had basically a whole floor where it was just a carport. So I thought, what if I ended up converting that carport into a 1-bedroom apartment? And that's what I did. I ended up through renovating. Took me about 3.5 months. My girlfriend at the time and now wife ended up, man, it was tough because we fully renovated the whole house. We ended up making the 3-bedroom into a 5-bedroom. We actually ended up adding a bath and then converting the downstairs from a 1-bedroom and a carport into a 1-bedroom apartment with a full kitchen. So I bought it for about $875,000 at the time. I just had it recently reappraised about 1.5 years ago. It's now worth 1.5. So I nearly doubled my investment just by, again, I mean, I was very lucky with the market condition having improved, again, from when I bought it to now. That's something I had no control over, but it happened. And it's not an unusual story because properties do appreciate over time. So I nearly doubled my investment in terms of the capital I put in or the money that I borrowed, and then how much the house is worth now. Now that property alone, I have 2 tenants, or actually I have 3 tenants upstairs, which is, one unit. And then I have another tenant downstairs, and cumulatively, I'm getting about $6,800 a month in gross rental income. Do you think that covers my mortgage? Yes, it does. So that was the third property I purchased. Now, right after that, I ended up purchasing another apartment complex, an apartment for about $235,000. Now, this one I did pay in cash. I didn't want to get a loan for that. I mean, it was a kind of a lower priced apartment. Now, the issue with this apartment is that it had no parking, but I knew that it was very close to a hospital, and I knew that some nurses, who wanted to just walk to work, it would be a great, place for them to commute. So that's one of the investment strategies that I would recommend: either purchasing a property near a school, a university, a big hospital, or if it has parking, and then close to somewhere where they can go on the highway and it really cuts down their commute time, or a metro. And then this one here, I ended up renovating, and I'm renting it out for $1,800 a month. Fast forward probably a couple months, if not almost a year, I ended up buying another house in Palolo, and that's also in Honolulu. I bought this one for about $1 million, so the market wasn't as good. I renovated the entire place. Again, it's a duplex. There's a studio upstairs and then a 2-bedroom downstairs for the main house. And this one rents for about $5,300 a month, cumulative, with the studio and the bottom. So right now, between between the 5 properties that I have in Hawaii, I'm collecting about $23,000 a month in gross income, gross rental income. And then that's not including, now I did buy my parents a house last year in Virginia. That one I don't include because I didn't buy that for investment strategy. The numbers really don't work because they only pay me, a little bit for, just being able there. So they're paying me a little bit, but I did buy the house and my dad did do some investment from some renovation. So, the property has appreciated in value. So I don't really count that in my investment portfolio per se because I bought my parents a house. But the properties that I do have, they are cash flowing, all of them. So this is mailbox money, guys. This is money that I collect every single month. And if you don't think that $23,000 a month, actually no, $27,000. Sorry, $27,000 a month can change your life. You have a really crazy life because for most people, including myself, $27,000 a month. Now, I do have expenses, mortgages, HOAs, etc. So if you take all that out, I'm cash flowing about $11,000. So it's like having a 6-figure plus job, and I am retirement eligible. So there's a lot of investment strategies out there, as I talked to you before. There's a lot of cryptocurrency millionaires. I get it. And I am a little bit envious because I do also want to get into crypto. I do have a little bit of money investing in crypto, but I don't know nearly enough to invest more than what I've already invested. But I do know real estate, and real estate has changed my life for the better. And at 35 years old, which was about 3 years ago, I became retirement eligible, which means that I could have retired. I mean, I'm basically retired now. So that's the beauty of, for me, leveraging real estate. Investing in order to be retirement eligible whenever you deem. Now, your lifestyle is obviously going to play a big role. If you're balling out and you're you're staying at 5-star hotels and you're eating out every day, then you're going to need a lot more income. I live, what I consider kind of a modest lifestyle. Now, I do have a child. I have another child coming up, but I have no issues right now paying rent. Eating out whenever we want. If my wife wants sushi, I'm running out and getting sushi. I've come to a point now, again, this isn't to sound cocky or anything, it just is, and I'm sharing just very frankly my thoughts in my life. But I've come to a point where I go grocery shopping and I'll look at the price, obviously. I'm Asian, I want to save money, but I don't really care too much about the price because I have the financial means to buy it. If my wife or my son says, "Oh, I want that," I don't care really how much it is. I mean, unless it's absurd, then of course I say, "No, that's too expensive." But if my wife wants to go shopping, if my son wants a new toy, if I want a new toy, I just go buy it because I have the financial means now to where I can do that. My monthly bank statement actually increases every single month. We live here in Denmark, which is arguably one of the most expensive places in the world, barring New York, Tokyo, San Francisco. But we live very comfortably. And my real estate that I invested in, the real estate that I have as in my real estate portfolio, has allowed me and my family to live the life that we do. I can't fathom another way that we could be in the position we are now without having done what I did in real estate. I just can't, for me personally. So yeah, for me, real estate has been a game changer, a life changer, to say the least. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, $27,000 a month in gross income, good for you, and fuck you, because I want that and I don't have that. So I'm going to be going over some obstacles here, which you may encounter and probably in all likelihood have encountered. You may have thought about, most people, I read some statistics a while ago and they say like over 90% of people have thought about real estate, either getting into real estate sales or real estate investing. Most people have thought about real estate, buying their own home, whatever it is. The biggest, most overbearing challenge that most people face is down payment. Here in America, I'm not sure about elsewhere. Here in America, you need about 20% down in order to purchase a home. Now, down payment means cash that you've saved that shows the bank or your mortgage provider that you've done your due diligence, you've done your part to save up a little bit of the house that you want to buy. And then the bank basically comes in and says, okay, we'll give you the remaining 80% as a loan. Now, 20% 30 years ago, when home prices were in the mid to upper hundreds, maybe even 200,000, would have been fathomable. Because if you take a home that's $250,000, $225,000, 20% of that is roughly about, let's say, anywhere between $35,000 and $50,000. No small chunk of change, right? I mean, I don't know a lot of people having $50,000 just lying around, especially 20, 30 years ago. So it is money that you would have to have saved, but $50,000 is something that's doable. You know, it may take you a year, maybe take you 2 years, but it is doable. Nowadays, in a lot of markets where the average price is over 700, 800, in Hawaii's case, over $1 million for a single family home, you're looking at $200,000 of cash that you need in order to buy a home. That's provided you had good credit. $200,000. That's almost $250,000 that you need in cash to buy a home. So how many people, how many hardworking Americans out there have $250,000 to put down to buy a home? Not many. Now, again, those numbers may vary because if you're in, I don't know, Florida, for example, maybe the median home price is lower. But again, 20% of the way home prices are now, it is very challenging. And I would argue to say that down payment is probably the number one reason why people end up unable to purchase property. So down payment is a big thing. So the way that I would really try to see if I can help you with this down payment issue is I would encourage you to talk to as many mortgage officers or loan officers as possible. Nowadays, don't be like me. Don't talk to one, they say no, and then you just, you're sad for another 5 years and you don't do anything. Don't do that. Go out and find several. I would say maybe anywhere between 3 and 5 loan officers in your area that have a good reputation, that do a lot of good business, and ask them and share with them your story and say, hey, my name is Josh Smith. I am a firefighter and I've been a firefighter for 13 years. This is my income roughly. These are my expenses. Would I be able to qualify to buy a home? And this is how much money I've saved up. Give them your situation and see if they have a program that would allow you to buy a home. You may not necessarily need 20% down. There are programs out there now that are 10% down, 5% down. I've even seen 2.5% down. If you're military, you have the option of using your VA loan benefit and putting zero money down. That means you don't need any cash other than closing costs, of course, to buy a house. So do not get stuck with being uneducated and not being informed to where you think you can't own, especially for your military out there. You can own a piece of the country that you fought for. Do you understand that? So let me repeat that. Continue to ask as many questions and to as many people as possible until you're hearing yes. If this is your goal to change your life around, to start the process of becoming financially free through real estate, you got to ask enough questions to enough people and never take no for an answer. Okay? So important. If you get nothing out of this, then I'd be okay with that. The market condition is, of course, something that you can change, but it is something that you do need to be aware of. That is an obstacle. If it's a shitty market like now, where the interest rate is extremely high, it may pose different challenges. However, there are other options out there. Again, like I said, if you need to borrow from friends and family in order to get to your starter home, then do so. You can't, for you to try to time the market is probably the worst investment strategy. So figure out what's going to work in your current market. Now, different market conditions warrant different market strategies. I won't get into every little detail about that, but just be aware that the market condition in your area is an obstacle that you are going to have to be aware of to be able to formulate a strategy around it, okay? The other thing is if you become a landlord, which is great, you've purchased a home, you've got some tenants, you're cash flowing, fantastic, you're ahead of the curve. There are going to be issues regarding the tenants. Unfortunately for me, I recently had an issue with the tenant where I had to basically evict them. But before that, I didn't have any issues. I mean, for about, I would say about 6, 7 years, I didn't have any tenant issues with rent, with payment, with issues. I didn't. The most important thing that you could do to mitigate issues with tenants is to find great tenants in the beginning. So don't be in a rush. Even if you have to leave the place vacant for a month to find the perfect tenant, it's going to be worth it to you. So do your due diligence. When you're looking for a tenant, make sure you're doing background checks, make sure you're doing credit checks, make sure you're doing reference checks. So talk to the previous landlord, talk to their emergency contact, talk to their employer, talk to as many people as you can to find out, to get a better picture of who this person is that's going to be moving in. The next thing is property management. Now, if you're in the area, this is probably going to save you anywhere between 10 to 20% off the top. If you can manage your own properties and create a lot of systems around it, then you should manage your own property. There's a lot of great platforms out there, and I'll provide a link down below of some really good technology tools that you can use to help manage your properties. I would look into a lot of them and see which one fits your needs the best, sign up for it, and leverage the technology to help you manage these properties. If you don't live in the area that you live in or that you're renting, you can also manage your own, which I'm doing, but you have to have great people around. For me, I have a great team of cleaners and I have a great plumber and electrician. So those are really usually 95%, a bulk of what the tenants need usually. So you are able to manage remotely, but make sure you have a great team around that so you can call them and get those issues fixed, pretty quickly. All right. So you've heard everything. Everything sounds good. You're ready to get started. You're motivated. So how do you start? I've got a couple of tips for you. The first thing is you want to find out what it's going to take for you to get started. So the way you do that is do a personal assessment. Figure out what your financial situation currently is. Your income, your expenses. If you have an accountant or a financial advisor, this is a great opportunity for you to make an appointment and share with them and say, I'm looking to start to build a real estate portfolio. I want to get started. These are my finances. What is it going to take? And do a financial assessment of where you're at. You want to figure out where you're at now to figure out where and how you want to get to where you're going. So take a financial picture of where you're at. So this includes your credit score. This includes how much you have in savings. This includes your monthly expenses and your income and any other financial components that may be relevant to you applying for a loan in order to buy a house. The next step is going to be able to take that financial assessment and take it to a loan officer. Now, a loan officer or a mortgage originator is going to be able to take those informations, your income, your expenses, your savings, your credit score, and put into their system to figure out, okay, how much do you qualify to borrow? Now, they're going to put all those numbers and they're going to aggregate into their database, and it's going to punch out a figure. And they may say, wow, okay, based on your income and all your finances, you qualify for a $400,000 loan. Now, keep in mind, this is your max budget. You also want to find out at $400,000 purchase price and the savings you have for a down payment, what is your monthly expenses going to look like? Now, if your expenses per month are going to be too much, if it's going to be overwhelming based on what you're comfortable with, you want to lower your budget. So you may have qualified up to $400,000, but you may want your max budget to be more closer around $300,000. So this is what they call avoiding being house poor. You qualify. Now, these mortgage people, they get paid on the amount of the loan. So the more money that they can lend you, the more money they can make. So keep that in mind. You don't want to spend as much as they lend you, unless, of course, you can afford it. So you want to figure out not what your max budget is in terms of purchase price, but figure out and calculate how much that is going to be at the end of each month as far as what you're going to pay. Keep in mind that this may or may not include property taxes, HOAs, other maintenance issues. So you have to factor those in. The other thing is to keep a long-term strategy. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of flippers out there making a lot of money. But again, I choose not to do that because it's more of a short-term strategy. I would suggest that if you're looking to get into real estate, don't look at the micro picture of this, but look at more of a macro perspective. I couldn't tell you what the market's going to do in a year, 2 years, or even 4 or 5 years for that matter. I could quite accurately tell you what it's going to do in the next 30 years. So think about a long-term picture. Don't think about or trying to get rich very quick. Usually it doesn't work. You may get lucky again, but those things are out of your hand. Market conditions are out of your hand. Interest rates are out of your hand. So do as much as you can with what you can control and take a long-term approach to real estate investing. If you do so, the odds are going to be greatly in your favor that your assets are going to appreciate over time and that you're going to be able to accumulate and scale your portfolio as much as you want. Last but not least on how to get started is going to be your ability to evaluate deals. There's a lot of great programs out there, and I'll create a link down below to some resources you can use that provide some of these tools. But really learn by researching and learning and listening to podcasts and whatever you need to do, and educate yourself on how to evaluate a good deal. Because having the funds, being able to get a loan is one thing, but if you make a bad purchase, you're going to be in the hole for a very long time. And that may well be the end of your real estate investing career. Do you want to do that? Obviously not. So learn how to invest, learn how to evaluate good investments. Just like if you're a stockbroker or anything else, you want to research that as much as you can. There's real estate investing is a multifaceted type of investment strategy. There's a lot that goes into it. So take all those things into consideration, educate yourself and teach yourself how to evaluate a good deal. Your good deal, keep in mind, is going to be dependent on your investment strategy. What a good deal is to a flipper may not be a good deal to you as a long-term investor. What a good deal to you as a long-term investor or me may not be a good deal to a flipper. So make sure those two things are aligned. Your investment strategy and on how you evaluate what a good deal is. And again, those two things should be aligned. Why are we doing any of this? Why do you want multiple properties? Why do you want $27,000 a month in gross income? I think the answer is pretty universal. At least for me, I may be wrong in my presumptions here, but it's for financial freedom. Now, I've heard overwhelmingly when I ask someone the question, well, why do you want to own 4, 5, 10, 15 properties? Why do you want that? Because again, at the end of the day, the why is the most important. Overwhelmingly, I would say, probably 9 out of 10 people would answer, I want financial freedom. And when I ask them, they say, okay, what does financial freedom mean to you? That's when they get their tongue tied. They're like, well, I don't want to have to worry about money. I want to be able to vacation whenever I want. I want to quit my job. So financial freedom means so much. It's like saying, I want to be happy. Well, what does happiness really mean? And I would encourage you guys to really dissect this as much to a micro level as you can. If you want financial freedom, great. I think that's a good starting point. But dissect it down. What does financial freedom mean to you? Because you, watching right now, is in a much different place in time, in terms of family structure, financially, than I am, than someone else is, than your friend is, than your teacher, whoever it is. We're all different. So what does financial freedom mean to you? And to figure out the why is probably the most important part of investing. And I know it may sound trivial to say, okay, like what does financial freedom mean to me? But to figure out and to understand and to internalize and have that why become a part of the DNA of why you want to do this is the most important thing. If you're doing this for your kids, if you're doing it to have a better life for your family so that they don't have to worry about money, if you want to do it so that you have, when you pass, an asset portfolio to be able to provide to your family, that's a great why. It doesn't matter what the why is. You just need to have one. For me, my why is my wife and my kids, along with my personal goal of achieving financial abundance. Now, I grew up in a rather poor family. We were immigrants to the U.S., and I saw my parents fighting over money more than a handful of times. And it just, the feeling that it gave me just to this day really bothers me. So I made a commitment to myself that I would never have to worry about money again, that I would do whatever it takes. I would work however many hours a day. I would talk to as many people as I could. I would take calculated risks. I would do anything that I possibly can so that I don't have to worry about money the way my parents did. Now, there's nothing wrong with what my parents did. They were trying to make a living. It's a much different time period than when they came versus what we have. I feel very fortunate. If you're the son or a daughter of an immigrant parent, give them credit, call them, tell them, and say thank you for the work that you've done. Because the truth is, you and I, as immigrant kids or kids to an immigrant parent, have it much easier. And I didn't realize this when I was growing up, but as a 38-year-old, I have come to terms with how difficult of a situation that must have been for them. We are far better off now than they were. We have more opportunities than they will ever have. So we need to give back. We need to pay this forward. And a big part of my why, of course, is my wife and my kids. But a big part of my why is that I've put myself in a position to where I could make content like this to pay it forward. Now, I don't want to get emotional, but it's so important to do that. It's so important to have your why, because without a why, there's no purpose for any of this. What is the purpose of having $1 million in the bank if you don't have a why, if you don't know the reason you're doing it? So I would encourage you guys, the nitty gritty, the technical stuff is important. And I understand that everyone is different, but I would encourage you guys to watch this video, but to first start off with identifying what your why is. Whatever it is, it's fine. Whatever your purpose is, it's fine. The reason you're doing any of this, it's okay, but identify it. Without it, I think you'll get lost. So, in conclusion, find out and have an internal discussion with yourself, perhaps in the mirror, of why you want to do any of this. Secondly, talk with a financial advisor or your CPA or an accountant to figure out and assess what your current financial situation is. Second or third, get in touch with multiple, not one. Again, I suggested before 3 to 5 loan officers who can assess the financial information that you've been provided and figure out what your qualifications are. See how much home you can afford. With that in hand, go out shopping. Find a great realtor, find a great friend who's been through the process, and educate yourself on the process. Don't just rely on a realtor to do the work for you. And then obviously the last step is to execute. Once you've identified the property, once you've identified a great investment opportunity for your strategy, execute. I can't stress to you enough the importance of execution. A lot of people have analysis paralysis. Well, they'll analyze and watch hours and hours and consume hours and hours of content like this, but not do anything. You have to do something about it. So it's one thing to listen to a podcast like this. It's another thing to execute. I would guarantee that less than 10%, maybe even 5% of those of you guys that are watching or listening to this are actually going to do this. It's just statistics. Do you want to be the 95% of people watching this now that live an ordinary life, that don't have the financial freedom, that don't know what their why is in life? Do you want to be the 95%? Or are you going to make a decision now to be the 5% of the people watching this? That's going to make a conscious and intentional decision to change your life, to change the life for your family forever. Forever. Because I'll tell you what, my real estate portfolio right now alone has changed my life and will change my kids' life and their kids' life and probably their kids' lives. And to me, it's not even a large portfolio. So that is your decision to make. You can do something about it now, or you can just go about this and say, wow, that was a great episode. I feel fired up, but not do anything about it. That is your decision to make. I hope that helps, guys. And if this material helps, please do me a favor and like the video, comment down below. I really want to interact with people on this through this channel, and of course, subscribe. And I look forward to the next great episode. And take care, guys. Take care of each other. Until next time.